what does it mean when a former colonial power finally packs up and leaves 65 years later? France's formal withdrawal from its last military bases in Senegal marks more than a logistical maneuver. It signals a powerful shift in West Africa's geopolitical landscape. As the French flag is lowered in Dakar, questions about sovereignty, influence, and the legacy of colonialism resurfaces with renewed intensity. Is this the beginning of true independence, or just a new phase of external control in a different disguise? Well, as we delve into the details, this and many more will be explored in today's Flash News. Good afternoon and welcome. I am Tabitha Akro. Let's begin. France officially handed over its last two military bases in Senegal on Thursday, bringing an end to more than 6 decades of military presence in the West African nation. The withdrawal comes amid rising anti-French sentiment and growing demands for sovereignty across the region. The handover ceremony held in Dakar was presided over by Senegal's General Mbaye Cissé and France Africa Command Chief Pascal Lani. It marked the closure of Camp Gil, where approximately 350 French soldiers were stationed, completing a process that began in March 2024. Now, the French army has maintained a presence in Senegal since its independence in 1960 under various defense agreements. However, the narrative has changed in recent years, with Senegal signaling a desire for strategic autonomy and reduced foreign military influence. In his address, General Cissé emphasized the transition as an opportunity to redefine bilateral defense relations and strengthen Senegal's military self-reliance. The two countries, he said, have defined new objectives to reshape their security partnership. But what exactly will this new cooperation look like? Will France maintain influence through advisory roles, or is a full strategic decoupling on the way? President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has been vocal about ending foreign military presence by 2025, aligning with public sentiment and historical grievances. His December announcement coincided with the 80th anniversary of the Taiwan massacre, where French colonial forces killed West African soldiers protesting poor treatment. France President Emmanuel Macron later acknowledged the killings as a massacre in a letter to Faye. Now, how does the memory of colonial injustice shape modern diplomatic decisions? And to what extent can formal apologies repair long-standing rifts, as in the case of this? The symbolic link between the massacre and the decision to end France's military presence raises deeper questions about the lingering shadows of colonialism and their influence on present-day geopolitics. France's footprint in West Africa is beginning to wane. Senegal is not alone in distancing itself from France. Since 2020, military coups in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have led to the expulsion of 4,300 French troops. These juntas have increasingly pivoted toward alliances with non-Western powers like Russia, challenging France's historical dominance in the region. Meanwhile, France has also ended operations in the Central African Republic, Côte d'Ivoire, and Chad. Its last major base in Africa remains in Djibouti, where about 1,500 soldiers are stationed. But for how long? Is France losing its strategic leverage in Africa permanently? Or is this a temporary realignment driven by populist currents? As West African nations reassert sovereignty and seek new global partnerships, France faces a critical challenge: how to rebuild trust and relevance in a region where its legacy is both deeply embedded and widely contested. So that's on for Africa. Now moving over to the United States. The President of the United States at the White House has been confirmed that President Donald Trump is experiencing swelling in his lower legs due to a common vein condition, along with bruising on his right hand, following recent public appearances that showed visible discoloration and swelling. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt disclosed the update during a Thursday briefing, citing a statement from Trump's physician, U.S. Navy officer Dr. Sin Barbella. According to the medical report, the president underwent a series of diagnostic tests, including an ultrasound that revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a non-life-threatening condition that primarily affects individuals over 70. Let's take a listen.
On another note, I know that many in the media have been speculating about bruising on the president's hand and also swelling in the president's legs. So in the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. Laboratory testing included a complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, coagulation profile, D-dimer, B-type natriuretic peptide, and cardiac biomarkers. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was also performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. And the president remains in excellent health, which I think all of you witness on a daily basis.
Well, we'll see that the bruising on Trump's right hand, as she has stated, was attributed to frequent handshaking and the routine use of aspirin as part of his cardiovascular regimen. Despite the visible symptoms, Barbella reported no evidence of deep vein thrombosis, arterial disease, heart failure, kidney issues, or any systemic illness. Trump reportedly remains in good health and is not experiencing discomfort. Medical experts consulted by Reuters, including Dr. Kwame Amakwa from the University of Connecticut and Dr. Todd Balan of NYU Langone Health, noted that while chronic venous insufficiency does not impact life expectancy, it can affect mobility and quality of life if left untreated. Treatment generally includes compression, stockings, and leg elevation. Now, this disclosure follows widespread online speculation about the 79-year-old president's health after images circulated showing makeup on the back of his hand and swollen ankles. Trump previously underwent a full physical examination in April, which found no major health concerns. Well, these are the concerns coming from the public, but then the president is in good health. Now, still on, the United States President Donald Trump's administration plans to request a court order to release grand jury transcripts related to the case of Jeffrey Epstein, the late convicted sex offender. The move follows public backlash from some of Trump's supporters after a recent Justice Department report dismissed a long-standing conspiracy theories surrounding Epstein's death and associations. President Trump announced on his Truth Social platform that he had instructed Attorney General Pam Bondi to release all relevant grand jury material pending court approval. He criticized the handling of the case and urged for greater transparency. Shortly after the announcement, Bondi confirmed that the Justice Department would file a motion on Friday seeking the unsealing of the document. The renewed focus on Epstein emerged after the Justice Department found no credible evidence supporting theories about his 2019 death in jail or the alleged involvement of high-profile individuals. Now, despite this, calls for more information, including names and flight records, have intensified among some factions of Trump's base, creating internal tension. Bondi had previously promised to also reveal extensive details about Epstein's activities and connections. We see that the Epstein's alleged sexual abuse of minors came to light in 2006, leading to an initial plea deal. He was later rearrested in 2019 on sex trafficking charges, but died in custody before trial. His death has since fueled widespread speculation and debate. Now, Caroline Leavitt also made a statement on the Epstein. Let's take a listen.
The president is referring to the fact that Democrats have now seized on this as if they ever wanted transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, which is an asinine suggestion for any Democrat to make. The Democrats had control of this building, the White House, for 4 years, and they didn't do a dang thing when it came to transparency in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous crimes. It was this president who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did. The Attorney General and the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these are great patriots, some of the most trusted voices in the Republican Party movement. It's part of the reason the president appointed them to these high law enforcement positions. And they spent many months going through all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and they concluded what they found in that memo, which they drafted and they released. And so the president has been transparent. He has followed through on his promises to the American people, but he doesn't like to see Democrats and the mainstream media covering this like it's the biggest story that the American people care about. The president has been working so hard this week. On Tuesday, he went to Pennsylvania, where he secured $90 billion in investments for the Commonwealth, for the people of that state. After that, he came back to the Oval Office at 8 p.m. He went in there to whip votes to get the Genius Act signed into law. And because of his efforts, that bill is now going to be signed and passed. The following day, yesterday, he meets with a foreign leader, the King of Bahrain, to secure more investments into this country. And then yesterday afternoon, the president is in the East Room of the White House mourning with parents who have lost their children because of fentanyl, signing a bipartisan piece of legislation. And not a single cable network in this country took that event live and covered that event like they should. Those are the issues the president cares about. What could be more important to the American people than helping families who have lost their children? Those are the issues this president is going to remain focused on.
A honest review right there by Caroline Leavitt. President Donald Trump seems to be doing a lot. Well, moving over to the Middle East, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has appointed a new prime minister, marking the first major government reshuffle since Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022. On Thursday, Ukraine's parliament approved Yulia Sviridenko, who is 39 years, as the new prime minister, replacing Denis Shmyhal. She becomes the first woman to hold the role since the war began. A former deputy prime minister and economic minister, Shevchenko recently helped secure a minerals and investment deal with the United States. The appointment is part of a broader transformation of Ukraine's executive branch, with Zelenskyy emphasizing economic revitalization, domestic weapons production, and expanded social support as top priorities. The reshuffle also places outgoing Prime Minister Shmyhal in a new role as defense minister, replacing Rustem Umerov, who had faced criticism over procurement inefficiencies. Sviridenko received strong parliamentary backing, with 262 lawmakers voting in favor out of the 450 seats chamber. The move comes as Ukraine continues to operate under martial law and confronts persistent challenges on the battlefield and the home front. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen extended her support to both Zelenskyy and Shimhal, affirming the EU's commitment to Ukraine's recovery and path toward EU integration. Zelenskyy has been a key figure in Ukraine's reconstruction efforts, often representing the country in talks with Western partners. Her leadership is expected to focus on economic stabilization, defense collaboration, and internal reforms amid ongoing conflict. Now, this leadership change is widely seen as an effort to streamline governance, strengthen wartime coordination, and also to consolidate Zelenskyy's political control during a critical period for Ukraine's future. Well, this is a good one right there for the people of Ukraine. Now, moving on, in Taiwan, Taiwan's Vice President Kim said on Friday that the island does not seek conflict with China and will avoid any actions that could escalate tensions despite increased military pressure from Beijing. China considers Taiwan a breakaway province and continues to label President Lai Ching-te a separatist. However, Taiwan's government rejects this characterization, asserting its sovereignty and commitment to regional stability. Let's take a listen.
We approach the cross-strait relationship with both principle and responsibility. President Lai has reiterated our government's commitment to upholding peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. Taiwanese people are peace-loving and among the friendliest and most generous in the world. We do not seek conflict. We will not provoke confrontation. And as President Lai indicated in his inaugural speech, we have urged the PRC to dialogue with the democratically elected government of Taiwan with parity and respect. For decades, Taiwanese people and businesses have contributed to China's growth and prosperity, which has only been possible under a peaceful and stable environment. Aggressive military posturing is counterproductive and deprives the people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait of opportunities to pursue an agenda of growth and prosperity. Unfortunately, in addition to PLA military maneuvers, we have seen a dramatic uptick in provocative and proactive CCP efforts to infiltrate, sabotage, and divide our society. And that is why President Lai, to protect our democracy and social cohesion, has outlined 17 lines of effort in response to the CCP's deployment of hybrid tools to weaken us and disrupt the status quo. Defending the status quo is our choice, not because it is easy, but because it is responsible and consistent with the interests of our entire region.
That right there is at a press briefing with the Taiwan Foreign Correspondents Club in Taipei. Hisao described the Chinese military's posture as increasingly aggressive and counterproductive. She emphasized that the Taiwanese people are committed to peace and stability and reaffirmed the government's openness to dialogue with China. Hisao noted Taiwan's long-standing contribution to China's economic development through trade and investment, made possible under a peaceful environment. She stressed that maintaining the status quo is a responsible choice aligned with regional interests. In addition to managing cross-strait relations, Taiwan is engaged in ongoing trade negotiations with the United States. The talks follow an April announcement by the United States President Donald Trump of a 32% tariff on Taiwanese products, later suspended to allow discussions to proceed. Hisao said Taiwanese negotiators are working intensively to reach a balanced agreement that supports mutual trade, technology, partnerships, and investment. Taiwan remains a key player in the global semiconductor supply chain and continues to navigate complex international dynamics while advocating for peaceful engagement and economic cooperation. Well, this is a lot for the Taiwanese. Well, this is where we'll be drawing the curtain on today's flash news. Until we come your way, stay tuned for Horizon.